The invitation to her brother's wedding was waiting on the kitchen counter, but something didn't feel right. She was packing, getting ready to leave, when the voice came. A distorted, low whisper, cutting through the silence of the house. "Don't go to the wedding, check your husband's garage." It stopped her cold. Who was that? What did they mean? Her heart raced as she looked around, but the house was still. Her husband was out, her daughter upstairs playing. Everything seemed normal. But the voice, that eerie whisper, kept echoing in her mind. Against her instincts, she set the wedding dress aside and walked toward the garage. The door creaked open, the stale air hitting her face as she stepped inside. Nothing seemed unusual. The garage was exactly how it had always been, but then she saw it. A dusty cassette recorder sitting on a high shelf, something she'd never noticed before. Curious, she took it down and examined the tape inside. It was labeled with just one word: "Listen." Her hands shook as she pressed play. The first sound to fill the room was a soft, terrified voice, a little girl's voice. "Please, I'm trapped. Let me out. It's so dark." Her stomach dropped. The voice was unmistakable, her daughter's voice, but her daughter was upstairs, playing. She'd been fine just moments ago. Before she could process, the tape stopped. A sudden click echoed in the room, and the silence became deafening. She looked around, but there was nothing out of place, except for one thing, the faint outline of a hidden door in the back corner. And the realization hit her hard. She had no idea what her husband was hiding. Samantha had always been the type to keep her life organized. She loved routines. She loved predictability. Her job as a teacher kept her grounded, and her home was her sanctuary. She and her husband, Adam, had built this life together over the past 7 years. They had a beautiful daughter, Lily, and everything seemed perfect. On the surface, they were the ideal family, picturesque, calm, happy. Adam worked long hours as a software developer, often coming home late, but he was attentive, loving, always there when it mattered most. And Lily, their 6-year-old girl, was a bundle of joy, full of life and laughter. Her innocence was everything Samantha had ever wanted in the world. They lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood in the outskirts of Boston, a peaceful area where nothing ever seemed out of place. Their house was a traditional 2-story with a garden where Lily loved to play, and a cozy garage where Adam kept his tools, old boxes, and his ever-growing collection of vintage cars. But there was one thing that Samantha never questioned: Adam's secrecy. He wasn't one to share everything about his day. Sometimes, when she asked what he was working on, he'd smile and shrug, telling her it was a big project and he'd talk about it when he could. Samantha didn't think much of it. He had his hobbies, just as she had hers. After all, he had always been a bit of a mystery, but that was part of his charm. It was normal for her to spend evenings alone while he worked late, or weekends running errands for their daughter, or cleaning the house. Samantha was used to it, even if it sometimes left her feeling like an outsider in her own marriage. But she never questioned it too deeply. They were a family, and families trusted each other, didn't they? Still, there was always that one lingering feeling, a small, nagging sense of doubt. It wasn't so much that she didn't trust Adam. It was that something about his behavior didn't sit right. But she didn't dwell on it. Not until now. When the voice came through the intercom, Samantha's world tilted. She stood frozen for a moment in the kitchen, staring at the message like it was some sort of cruel joke. She tried to dismiss it. Of course, it was nothing. A prank call, a misunderstanding. But when she stepped into the garage and saw the recorder, her doubts only deepened. She'd always known there was something Adam wasn't telling her. She just hadn't realized how deep the lies ran, or how dark the secrets he was hiding truly were. Samantha didn't waste a second. She had to know what was behind that hidden door. Her hands shook as she reached out for the corner of the dusty shelf. The faint outline of the door was barely visible beneath years of neglect, but once she pulled away the boxes, it became clear. There it was. A narrow wooden door, locked, and so out of place. Why had she never seen it before? Was it new? Had Adam installed it recently? Her mind raced as she searched for a way in. The garage was cold, the air thick with the smell of gasoline and old wood. A creeping sense of dread spread over her, but she forced herself to stay focused. She couldn't let fear win. Not now. With a quick glance over her shoulder, she grabbed a crowbar from the wall. She wasn't sure why she had it in her hands, but something told her she needed it. She wedged it into the gap under the door handle and pulled. It gave with a groan. Inside, the room was almost pitch black, except for the faint light streaming through the cracks in the walls. She stepped forward cautiously, her feet crunching against something that didn't feel right. The floor was covered in dust and old newspapers, as if the room hadn't been touched in years. Samantha's breath caught in her throat as her eyes adjusted to the dim light. In the far corner, there was an old, rusted metal cabinet. She approached it slowly, heart pounding, and opened it with trembling hands. Inside, the cabinet was filled with more tapes, identical to the one she had found earlier. Each was labeled with a name: Catherine, Emily, Sophia. Names of young girls. Girls she had never heard of before, but it wasn't just the tapes. Samantha's gaze flickered down to something lying on the floor, half hidden behind the cabinet. A small, faded photograph. She bent down and picked it up, her hands shaking even harder now as she stared at the image. It was a photo of a girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, with dark brown eyes and a sad smile. The girl was sitting on a swing, her hands gripping the chains tightly, as if trying to hold herself together. But what made Samantha's stomach twist was the girl's face. There was something eerily familiar about her. She turned the photograph over. On the back, in tiny, smudged handwriting, were the words, "Lily, age 7, January 2017. Her breath caught in her throat. The photograph was from years ago, but it looked just like her daughter, only older. The room spun around her. She stumbled back, her legs giving way, and she collapsed onto the cold concrete floor. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be happening. But the reality was clear. The girl in the photo wasn't just any stranger. It was Lily, and she had no idea who had taken the picture or why her daughter was in a place like this. A wave of panic hit Samantha like a freight train. She needed answers. She needed to confront Adam. She needed to know what was going on. But the one thing she didn't expect, the one thing she wasn't prepared for. As she reached for her phone, she noticed something else, a small notebook hidden behind the cabinet. Curiosity gnawed at her. She pulled it out and flipped through the pages. It wasn't a diary. It was something far worse. It was a detailed log, every day, every hour, of Lily's whereabouts, and it was all written by Adam. Samantha's heart pounded in her chest as she read through the notebook, each word sinking into her like a cold, jagged blade. Adam had been documenting every aspect of Lily's life. It wasn't just about where she was, but every little detail, what she ate, where she played, who she talked to. The chilling part was that Adam hadn't just been recording facts. He had been writing about Lily in ways that felt wrong. Today, Lily laughed as she played in the backyard, but there was a sadness in her eyes I haven't seen before. She cried when I told her we were leaving for a while. I'm worried about her attachment to the house. The entries were scattered, not in any kind of order, but it was clear that Adam was keeping track of Lily's every move. Each entry grew more obsessive, more detached. Samantha couldn't breathe. What was this? Why had he kept such a detailed log of their daughter's life? And why was it hidden in the garage? Her mind raced, her body trembling as she tried to make sense of the situation. She wanted to confront Adam, but she couldn't get a hold of him. Her phone kept ringing out. He wasn't answering. Something was wrong. She needed to know everything. There was no turning back now. Her days became a blur of questions, confusion, and overwhelming anxiety. She couldn't shake the image of that photograph, the picture of a younger Lily with the date written on the back. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that this wasn't a random photo. It wasn't some forgotten memory. It was a clue to something darker that had been hidden for years. It wasn't just the tapes or the notebook. It was the way Adam had always been so distant, so secretive. The way he'd sometimes come home late, with no explanation. The strange, almost paranoid look in his eyes when he spoke about their daughter's safety. Samantha now realized that Adam wasn't just a loving father and husband, he was hiding something much deeper. But every time she tried to reach out to anyone, to her closest friends, she was met with an unsettling response. Silence. Everyone seemed too busy with their own lives. No one had seen anything unusual about Adam or the family. It was as if she were the only one noticing the cracks in their perfect little world. The more Samantha dug, the more isolated she became. She started questioning her own sanity. Was she just overreacting? Had she misunderstood something innocent? Adam had always been a private person, but this felt different. Late one night, when she was once again sitting alone in the garage, reviewing the tapes, she found something that made her blood run cold. It wasn't a tape of Lily's voice this time. It was Adam's. "She's almost ready," he whispered, his voice low and urgent. "She's getting older. Soon I'll take her to the place where she can truly belong, where we can be together forever." The words echoed in Samantha's mind, and it was as if her worst fear was beginning to take shape before her eyes. She had to know where this all led, and she had to find out before it was too late. There was no more running from the truth. Her only option now was to confront Adam. But how could she trust anything he said? How could she even trust herself? The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she might not be able to trust anyone anymore. Samantha couldn't wait any longer. The weight of the unknown was crushing her. Adam wasn't answering his phone, and Lily had fallen asleep hours ago. She couldn't let him keep running from her, from the truth. The time for questions was over. Now it was about finding answers, no matter how dark they might be. Her legs were unsteady as she made her way upstairs, her heart pounding louder with each step. She could hear Adam's car pull into the driveway, the sound of the tires crunching on the gravel outside. But even though she could hear him, it felt like he was miles away. Samantha met him at the door. His eyes were wide with confusion when he saw the rage and fear in hers. "Sam, what's wrong? Why aren't you at the wedding?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pushed past him, heading straight for the garage. Adam's footsteps echoed behind her, but she didn't care. She couldn't stop now. She reached the garage and opened the door with force. Adam stood still in the doorway watching her, but his eyes were guarded, unreadable. "You need to see something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She grabbed the notebook from the table and shoved it into his hands. "What is this, Adam? Why did you write all of this about Lily? About us?" Adam's face went pale as he scanned the pages. He opened his mouth, but the words didn't come. His silence was deafening. "You've been tracking everything, haven't you?" she demanded. "Every little thing she does, every moment, every detail. Why? Why hide this from me? Why is there a hidden room in our garage with tapes of other girls? Why are there pictures of Lily, older than she is now?" Adam stepped back, the blood draining from his face. He was no longer the man she thought she knew. There was something terrifying in his eyes, something cold. "I can explain," he said, his voice trembling. Samantha shook her head, taking a step back. Explain. Explain how you've been keeping secrets from me for years. Explain why there's a tape with your voice on it, talking about taking Lily away. What kind of monster are you, Adam? His expression twisted, and for the first time, she saw fear in his eyes. You don't understand, Sam. It's not what you think. I did it to protect her, to protect us. Protect us? She asked, the tears threatening to spill. From what? Who are you really, Adam? What have you been hiding? Before Adam could respond, Samantha's phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but something in her gut told her to answer. She pressed the phone to her ear, and a voice she didn't recognize spoke, cold and authoritative. We know everything, Samantha. Your husband has been involved in something far worse than you realize. He's not just hiding things from you, he's been part of something much bigger. And now it's too late for him to walk away. The voice paused, and Samantha felt the ground beneath her shift. Get out while you can, Sam, before it's too late. The call ended abruptly. Samantha's heart raced. She looked at Adam, but there was no apology in his eyes, only fear. Suddenly, everything around her felt like it was closing in. Adam took a step toward her, his voice shaky. Sam, listen to me. You don't know what you're dealing with. I've tried to protect you, but it's too dangerous. Her mind was spinning. She couldn't trust him anymore. He was lying. She had to get out. Without thinking, she turned and ran toward the door, but Adam grabbed her wrist. Please, Sam, you don't understand. You can't leave now. For the first time, Samantha saw him for who he truly was, a man who had been lying for so long that the truth was nothing but a shadow of what had been. With all the strength she had left, Samantha wrenched her arm free and slammed the door behind her. But as she stepped outside into the cold night air, the sound of a car engine revving from down the street made her blood run cold. Adam wasn't the only one with secrets, and now those secrets were coming for her. Samantha didn't stop running. Every step took her farther from the house, farther from Adam, farther from the life she thought she knew. Her thoughts were racing, confusion clouding her judgment, but she had no choice. The voice on the phone, the photograph, the tapes, everything led to the same conclusion. She had to get out. She had to protect Lily. Her feet pounded the pavement as she sprinted through the dark streets. She couldn't think straight, but she knew that returning home wasn't an option. The man she had married, the man she had trusted, was someone she didn't recognize anymore. As she reached the corner of their block, her phone buzzed again. She stopped, barely able to catch her breath, and checked the message. It was from an unknown number. Don't go back. The truth is worse than you can imagine. He's been watching you both for years. You've never really been safe. Samantha's heart stopped. She was alone, but not truly alone. Someone out there knew what had been happening. Someone knew the truth about Adam. But as she looked up, she saw headlights in the distance. The unmistakable hum of a car engine. It was Adam. Samantha's pulse quickened. He was coming after her. In that instant, all her fear evaporated. She couldn't keep running forever. She couldn't keep looking over her shoulder, wondering if her husband or someone else was waiting in the shadows. She had to face him, but she couldn't do it alone. She reached for her phone and called the only person she trusted, her sister, Rachel. Rachel answered on the first ring, her voice groggy from sleep. Sam, what's going on? Where are you? I don't have time to explain, Samantha said, her voice trembling. I need your help. Adam, he's not who he says he is. I need you to get Lily. Meet me at the old cabin by the lake. Hurry, please. Sam, what's happening? Are you okay? I'm not sure, Samantha replied, but I won't let him hurt her. Please, just trust me. Samantha hung up, her heart hammering in her chest. She couldn't afford to waste any more time. She turned and ran toward the woods, hoping Rachel would make it in time. The sound of the engine grew louder. Adam was closer. Samantha knew she couldn't let him find her. She needed to be strong for Lily. She reached the cabin just as the first light of dawn touched the horizon. The air was cold, but the weight of her fear was heavier than the chill. She could see Rachel's car parked nearby. Samantha rushed inside, her eyes scanning the room for Lily. Her daughter was safe, just like she had been in the days before everything started falling apart. But Samantha knew that wasn't enough. She had to make sure nothing could harm her again. The door behind her creaked open. "Sam, you can't keep running." It was Adam. His voice was softer now, almost pleading, but Samantha didn't back down. She stood tall, holding her ground. "No, Adam, I'm not running anymore, and neither is Lily." Adam's face twisted with anger. "You don't understand. I was trying to protect you both, but now it's too late. You've ruined everything." Samantha shook her head. "No, you're the one who ruined everything. You made us prisoners in a life that wasn't real." For a moment, they stood there, the tension thick in the air. Then, without another word, Adam turned and walked out of the cabin, his footsteps fading into the distance. Samantha watched him go, but she didn't feel the relief she expected. The damage had already been done. The man she had once loved was lost to a darkness she could never fully understand. But now she had to focus on the future, on her daughter, on finding a new life, a new way forward. She couldn't stay in the past, trapped by the lies. As Rachel wrapped her arms around her, Samantha felt something she hadn't in a long time: hope. It was fragile, but it was there, and she wasn't going to let go. Together, they would rebuild. Together, they would face whatever came next. Samantha knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was no longer afraid of what the future held, because now she was free. The journey Samantha faced was one no one should ever have to experience. She uncovered painful truths, faced unimaginable fears, and ultimately reclaimed her life. Have you ever had to face something that seemed impossible? Or a moment when you realized everything you thought you knew was a lie? Maybe you've felt like your world was collapsing, like nothing made sense anymore. But remember, you don't have to face those challenges alone. Samantha's courage wasn't just about running away from her past. It was about running toward the future she deserved. And we all have the power to do the same. Have you been through a tough time in your life where you felt you had to start over? Or perhaps you've been in a situation where trusting someone felt like the hardest thing to do? Share your story in the comments. If you found inspiration in Samantha's journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because no matter what we go through, we're never alone when we're together. And just like Samantha, we can overcome anything. So, are you ready to face your own challenges head on? Let's walk that path together.